Happy holidays, everyone. Welcome back to CXplorers Season 2, Episode 3 with myself, Daniel Cheung, and my co host, Jasper Nastor. How's it going, Jasper?
Doing good, doing good. Excited for the holiday season, man.
Nice. I noticed you had on your Casio World Time there. Is that a new piece?
Oh yeah, this one been
Yes.
have it for 2 months now, so this one's my daily driver now.
Perfect. Then you got another one for your wedding lined up, right?
Yeah, I just bought my wife a Tissot PRX, the quartz movement, pink dial, and I got myself an Orient Bambino dress watch,
Very
the one with the
classy.
cream dial and blue hands. Looks
The blue
so good.
hands, the brigade hands, yeah,
Yeah.
that's very nice. Yeah, my buddy has a bunch of Bambinos that he got for his groomsmen for his wedding as well. So I know the Nvidia Blackwell chip has really been hot topic lately, especially with the market impact that it had with them dropping a few points because of some server heating issues. But I wanted to share this video first, just so that our listeners can really get a sense of what is Nvidia Blackwell, what's all the hype around it, what's the impact here in terms of AI. So we'll play this 1 minute 11-second clip, and then we'll jump right into it. Gotta love Linus Tech Tips. So passionate.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have $3 million to drop on that server, but and I love that he mentioned that heat sink was illustrative because clearly it was.
Yeah.
But I guess I've been reading some really cool things about what it can do from a gaming perspective in terms of even the idea of rendering games in real time and the environments that people are in. I think we're approaching that movie Ready Player One really quickly, but
I
at the
know.
same time, I also see a lot of these gaps happening and these hiccups that are occurring. And I'm hoping that that gives some people a level of comfort that we're also not really there yet to build a Skynet. Skynet's not even there yet in terms of being able to do that. And I think at the end of the day, right, 100,000 watts just to power the Blackwell. For something like an AI to be very dangerous and evil, requires evil humans to kind of help train that. But secondly, I also think that it's just we don't have those kind of resources financially for myself and you, I know, but also just in terms of like the cooling that's needed for that, the energy that it's going to draw. I don't see it kind of impacting the end consumer in their homes anytime soon. I definitely think
Absolutely. Yeah.
there will be product outputs and services that they can use that piggyback off of some of the great computing that Blackwell is projected to be able to do in terms of graphics processing, really leveraging that for AI. I thought it was really cool how they took those two chips and the gap between them is less than like a hairline, right? And I think
Yeah, and
honestly
it's
we're tapped out, man, in terms of what we can build.
10 terabytes per second transfer of data. I mean, it can just ingest, a fire hose of information per second. I mean, that's just revolutionary. And to all of our, listeners, we'll break down the key features of Blackwell for this episode. We'll go over some of the applications that Daniel already talked about. Really, I think Dan, kicking us off first, when it comes to what NVIDIA released, right? Blackwell. I want to make it clear with everyone that Blackwell is not a GPU, it's an architecture, it's a platform, right? Because everyone might think that Blackwell is the name of a GPU. I mean, it's going to be like what Linus Tech Tips mentioned, right? B200. They're going to be able to give, different naming conventions to it, but overall, it arches under the Blackwell platform, right? So it's 208 billion transistors. I mean, let's just sink that in for a few seconds, man, right? And the way that this is, revolutionary, because I think right now we are definitely in a bottleneck between how fast AI is moving versus how hardware can keep up. And NVIDIA basically just resolved that bottleneck that we're experiencing, because not a lot of the chips right now can definitely handle the heavy requirement on how our developers are actually pushing forward with AI.
That's insightful in terms of that architecture, right? Because I almost feel like what we ran into a decade and a bit ago with flat panel LCDs and LED TVs was we were running 4K well before 4K was available to the
Yeah.
mass markets. Right. Even now, fiber is still being installed in a lot of areas to be able to support that kind of quality video. And there's really been no development in the flat panel area, I'd say, for the last like 8 years. Let's be realistic. I think the biggest breakthrough we saw in the last 4 years was they've started to put gloss on gaming screens, which for me was actually really exciting because I've been using TVs for my racing simulator. And now that they have monitors that are running 244 hertz that can do this, we're finally meeting flat panel technology in terms of computing. And I think that's a really good point you bring up is that what we're going to face with this Blackwell architecture? It's going to take some time because I know when Sandy Bridge came out, Ivy Bridge came out with Intel, there was a lot of different kind of catch up that everyone was doing. Then Ryzen got
Yeah.
in on the mix, right? So I'm just wondering, Jasper, do you think that that's going to be what this landscape's going to look out for the next, I'd say, half decade to decade, for everyone to kind of catch up and really find a use case or service or product from this Blackwell architecture that can appeal to the masses?
Well, I guess right now, at least for an organizational level, Blackwell is really a need, right? Because right now we don't have that much processing power available in the market, and Blackwell fits directly into what a lot of the developers are looking for. Now, from a consumer standpoint, then that's going to be a bigger discussion because I know you opened us up with overheating issues with the current Blackwell servers. It's going to take some time for it to be able to trickle down on a consumer level, but I do think that right now we're actually in the precipice of a big breakthrough, at least for everyone who's actually developing AI and creating that next Microsoft, that next Google. I mean, during the release of Blackwell, Sam Altman, Mark Zuckerberg, all the top 10 Fortune companies actually gave their quotes on what they think about Blackwell. So definitely for the bigger players, it's a huge impact. It's a need right now for everyone to have that much processing power. But from a consumer level, it may take a year or two, even 3 years, for us to be able to feel the impact of Blackwell because everyone is currently adopting with what this new architecture can do.
Yeah, because I know one of the big standout features in the context of AI and Blackwell is Blackwell's ability to look at AI inference at 30 times the pace of like previous
Yeah.
models. So much faster processing, much more efficient training of AI models. And I know even speaking with some folks at the conference I was at last week, a lot of tech companies are also looking at ways to train AI through synthesization of potential customer behavior or end use case. So that way, the filters that we talked about with Sasith on last episode was really about all of the filters, removing bias, and I think a lot of people are wondering, well, there still needs to be a human to do that, but there's a lot of different variables to kind of factor in, and that's really where leveraging AI to synthesize those kind of use cases and models, you're almost using AI to train AI in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly, and that's a big requirement. I guess a lot of the folks right now are only seeing the output of AI. Chat GPT, Copilot, you name it. But no one really bats an eye on what's the hardware that are driving all of this machine learning stuff. I mean, it takes quite a bit of servers for you to be able to execute that. So, as an example, I guess way back 2 3 years ago when ChatGPT, even Midjourney, came to town, there are going to be times where you can't get in to the system. Right? It just really takes some time for you to be able to get an output. Now that's a problem because of servers, the hardware that are running on the background. So this is exactly a lot of the answer that Blackwell is giving to everyone. So we will be getting much more faster turnaround from what you mentioned, Dan, from an AI training perspective, and from a consumer standpoint, you're going to be able to get better services. If you're using Google Home, if you're using Siri, you're going to be able to get faster responses eventually.
Yeah, but I know with Nvidia and Blackwell, they're using like their confidential computing, right, which
Yeah.
really ensures that any data and any AI models that they're using are protected from unwanted access. I'm wondering though, is that going to be a limitation in terms of how organizations use this, let's say in the customer experience space? Because when I look at this as well, it's people talk about like infosec, which I'm all for, right? They also talk about governance of AI, which I'm a little bit rocky on because I don't think it's AI that necessarily needs to be governed. It's people, right? In terms of what we're doing with it. And I think that's where we run into this issue, like you mentioned, you're talking about hardware and resource constraints, but on the flip side of it, we're also looking at privacy, security, and government governance constraints that are compliant with laws. So there's a lot of different barriers that we kind of have to navigate, especially for organizations as they adopt this architecture and start developing product based on this architecture, right? But I think to your point, allows them to build it, train it, and get it refined much quicker than in the previous state of things.
Yeah, and what's great about Nvidia's private compute, it's actually a hardware level security. It's not going out to any server; it's built into the architecture. So I think from a governance standpoint, and putting in some compliance pieces to it, since it's built on a hardware level, nothing is going out of anywhere. So that's actually one great leap that Nvidia did with Blackwell right there, with from a security standpoint.
Yeah, because I know some businesses are actually kind of looking at that architecture to even enhance or troubleshoot network and customer support issues that people may face within that kind of CX world. So I think we're really adopting the methodology of let's crawl before we walk with Blackwell architecture. We've known, I think everyone has the same fears of, what happens if AI really gets in the wrong hands and the governance of people and how we remove bias and how we train AI using AI isn't there. It could be really dangerous. It could be, and I think it could really stream into a lot more deepfake and a lot more fraud opportunities as well, right? And I think
Yeah.
as we look at Blackwell and its use cases, we also need to look at the architecture on how we can also leverage quantum computing in the future to combat deepfakes. Right. And I think that's really where computing is really going to need to advance from a protection standpoint as well, not just from making our lives easier and getting AI more integrated in our everyday lives. It's about making sure that we're doing it in the right way and that we have those protections. And that's kind of what makes me a little bit nervous is in terms of how many people have access to this ticking time bomb essentially, and if they misuse it, again, it could really create a lot of detriment. We've seen those kind of detriments very early on when ChatGPT got released. I think there was, remember we talked about last season, there was that lawyer that used it, didn't fact check, and then became a whole issue, right?
Yeah.
Because again, those hallucinations can be really real, right? And that's really why I think when we look at AI synthesization to train AI and kind of create those filters, remove bias, we really need to kind of do it step by step, have human intervention at every step of that way. And especially now that computing power is going to be 30 times more when we look at this new architecture, it's like we also need to get 30 times quicker in terms of being able to protect ourselves, protect customers and users from potential fraud or hallucinations as well.
I agree. I completely agree that it's just going to take everything to the next level. We're just, gonna have that rocket ship kind of phase. I think come 2025, and it's exciting stuff coming along. With now we have the software side, AI, and hardware stuff kind of catching up together. And to your point, really, it's going to be the human element that now needs to catch up with all of this technological advances.
For sure. Cool. Well, as we venture into the new year, just wanted to wish all our listeners and our audience a very happy holiday season, very happy New Year's. Enjoy the time with your family. Try not to eat too much. I know I will. But again,
We
Jasper,
always say that yearly. We always
exactly.
say
Yeah.
that.
And then I come back with this whole resolution to go to the gym again, right? So same old cycle. But Jasper, if I don't talk to you until the new year, have a very happy wedding. Congratulations again.
Thank you so much, man.
And again, to our listeners, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in 2025.
Thanks, everyone.